I filed my observer's report the morning after we recovered the bodies, and the senior assessor sent it back 3 times. Each time the reason was the same. The category fields were left blank. I left them blank because nothing in the proficiency rubric described what I had seen, and I was not going to invent language for it. I will describe it instead. The Keth Scour is a canyon system on the 4th orbital of a dead sun. A Class 19 trial ground the Dominion uses for its advanced hunter certifications. The rock is iron dark, compressed by some old geological violence into walls that lean inward as they rise, so the canyon floor receives direct light for perhaps 2 hours at midday and shadow for the rest. The temperature at the floor swings 60 degrees between those 2 hours and the pre-dawn minimum. The air is thin. Every surface that isn't bare rock is covered in a salt crust that tears skin if you fall on it. It is not a place where things survive by accident. I was posted as a cadet observer for the autumn cycle's final proficiency exercise. My role was to watch from the canyon rim, log the hunt's progress on a telemetry slate, and submit a clean record to the assessment board. I had done this twice before with other prey species. It is, normally, a straightforward assignment. The prey for the autumn cycle was a human female, Corporal Sura Den, attached to a Dominion forward garrison on a treaty work rotation, had been processed through the standard waivers and the standard sedation protocol, and was released at the canyon's south mouth at first light. The subject profile listed her as 26 years of age, mass 61 kilograms, origin world classified as a Class 9 designation, the Dominion's standard entry for Earth, which is what they wrote when they hadn't updated the file. The hunter unit descended 15 minutes after release, 12 of them, the autumn cycle's top-graded cadre, certified at the Dominion's 3rd tier of proficiency, equipped with pulse restraint tools and a pair of long impact rods for driving prey toward the extraction point. The exercise parameters did not call for lethal termination. They called for live capture within 6 hours. I noted the time of descent. I opened my telemetry slate and settled in. They made contact 40 minutes in, approximately 1 kilometer from the south mouth. The canyon narrows there into a choke passage no wider than 4 body lengths, and the lead hunter flushed her out of a shadow pocket on the east wall where she had stopped moving. I watched it on the rim feed. She came out low and fast, covering ground in a way that did not match the subject profile's listed mass. The lead hunter put a pulse restraint across her left shoulder at close range, a discharge rated to immobilize a species twice her size. She went down onto the salt crust. The lead hunter moved in to secure. Standard procedure. She stood up. I noted this on the slate and did not write anything else for a moment because I was not certain what I was noting. The telemetry feed was still running. Her biometrics were available on the secondary panel. Heart rate elevated, respiration elevated, left shoulder reading a tissue disruption score that the panel's color scale rendered in orange. Orange is the 2nd highest injury designation. Subjects at orange shoulder scores do not, in the Dominion's experience, stand up quickly. She stood up in under 4 seconds. She was already moving before the lead hunter had closed the distance to restrain her. The next 40 minutes were methodical, and I watched them from the rim without fully understanding what I was watching. The hunter unit is trained, coordinated, and effective. They split into pairs, worked the canyon's geometry, cut off the choke passages one by one. They landed 4 more pulse discharges over the course of those 40 minutes, 2 to the torso, 1 across her legs, 1 at close range directly to the base of the neck, which is the location the Dominion's restraint protocols specify for maximum neural disruption. She went down each time. She stood up each time. The biometric panel began adding colors the scale was not designed to display simultaneously. By the end of the first hour, her tissue disruption index was reading values I had previously only encountered in post-exercise mortality reports. The assessor standing beside me on the rim looked at the panel, and then looked at the canyon, and then looked at me. I had nothing to offer her. I kept logging. The hunter unit made its first error in the 2nd hour. They had driven her to the canyon floor's widest section, where the salt flats open out and there is no cover, and they converged from 4 angles simultaneously. It is the move the rubric calls a close net formation, and it is the last step before live capture. 2 of the hunters moved in to secure, while the other 10 held the perimeter. She did not attempt to run from the net. She walked toward the nearest anchor point of it, which was a single hunter on the east side. I noted that she was still favoring the left shoulder, and that her gait had a slight pull on the right leg from the leg discharge, and that she was walking at perhaps 70% of the speed her subject profile suggested was normal. I also noted that she was not looking at the hunter she was walking toward. She was looking at the space between that hunter and the next one in the line. She was reading the geometry of the net. What happened in the next 4 minutes is in my log as a timestamp sequence, because that is how I recorded it as it occurred. I did not editorialize. The log shows 1 hunter down at the east anchor point, restraint tool inverted and used against the handler, taken in under 8 seconds of contact. Perimeter disrupted. 3 additional hunters converged. 2 more down within the following 90 seconds, the third retreating with a disruption to its manipulator cluster that the post-exercise medical report later classified as a compound fracture across 2 joints. She recovered the pulse rod from the first anchor point. She walked north. The remaining 7 hunters reorganized. They were still the top-graded cadre of the autumn cycle, and they were trained for prey that fights back. They drove her into the narrowing north passage, where the walls closed to 2 body lengths, and they came in from both ends. The assessor beside me on the rim stopped writing on her own slate somewhere around this point. I noticed because I could no longer hear the scratch of her stylus. The log shows 40 more minutes of contact in the North Passage. I will not recount it in detail because I have already submitted the timestamp record and the biometric panel archive and the rim feed footage, and those documents speak precisely. What I will say is that the biometric readings I watched during those 40 minutes are the readings of something that should not have been conscious and should not have been mobile, and was both. The panel's injury designation scale does not go above red. She was above red for the last 20 minutes of contact in the North Passage, and she was still walking. She came out of the canyon's north mouth at the 4th hour and 42 minutes. The exercise window was 6 hours. She came out with 58 minutes remaining. I had moved along the rim to keep her in the feed. I watched her cross the salt flat at the canyon's north exit and find a flat shelf of iron rock approximately 30 meters from the mouth, and sit down on it, and open a ration tin she had been carrying in a chest pocket. I do not know when she retrieved it. It was not noted in her subject profile as equipment. She sat on the rock and ate from the tin, and did not look back toward the canyon. Of the 12 hunters, 7 required immediate medical transport. The remaining 5 were ambulatory, but filed no further exercise reports that cycle. I submitted my observer's log the next morning, with the category fields blank. The senior assessor returned it, and asked me to complete the fields. I wrote, in the designated space for prey species behavioral classification, subject demonstrated sustained locomotive function and tactical coherence at injury indices incompatible with continued function in all reference species on record. I wrote, in the space for outcome classification, exercise parameters not achieved. I wrote, in the space for recommended follow-up action, review the subject's origin world classification. The assessor returned it a 3rd time. She wanted me to fill in the standard rubric fields. She wanted me to select from the drop-down categories the Dominion uses to describe what prey does. I told her there was no drop-down for this. She asked me what I would call it. I thought about Corporal Den sitting on the flat iron shelf with the canyon behind her, and the ration tin open in her hands, and the way she had not looked back once. I didn't have a word for what I would call it. I told the assessor, update the file. Whatever Earth is listed as, update it. The assessor pulled the file. She stared at it for a moment. She updated it.